Adriel Wallick, and I'm an independent developer, and I also run a game jam called Train Jam. I think that my games would be more small vignettes of what I'm feeling and wanting to explain to people how I'm feeling about something and using that as a means of communication. Currently, I mostly focus on contract work, so I've been making other people's games for the last year and a half just because money. And aside from that, it has been tiny little vignette games, but none of them have really made any money because that's not really what the market is. So that is what my games are right now, are other people's games. People can have their social views changed by playing games, especially games that are used to show and share personal experiences. So one of the nice things about games is because they're interactive and you have the agency of the characters, you can very easily put yourself in the character's shoes. So it's a much more impactful medium to sort of share different experiences that you might not be able to experience in real life, whether it's, going through a certain event or being a different type of person or facing a fear or experiencing a location that you'd never be able to experience before. I think games, because of the interactive medium part of them, are really good at being able to change and shape social views and just sort of give insights into different experiences. Like a lot of the historic, the last few years or the beginning of games till now historically have not been kind to women and this, that, and the other thing, and that can reinforce that stereotype that it's okay to treat women like rewards or objects, or if I press these right buttons and do the right inputs, then I get naked lady. But then there's also other games that can perpetuate a lot more educational and treating people with various different levels of humanity and opening eyes to different experiences of, this is what it's like being a person in a war-torn country. I never knew that this was an experience that somebody had, and then I got to play this game where I played a character that was that person. So it depends on the game and the person, I think, of whether it be positive or educational. Yeah, I think especially because being in the indie scene and being part of that, there's a lot more games that are less fantastical, less flashy, less need to be ooh, we gotta get bang, 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 dragons. And so there are a lot more smaller personal games that are just, walking through life and experiencing a lifetime of growing up, meeting a partner, growing old, having children, starting a family, and dying, and going through that sort of process. Or something like Papers, Please is very much non-fantastical, war, but sort of a sad situation of putting yourself into the shoes of somebody who has to balance being corrupt or being kind or being, following the rules with taking care of their family in this situation. Some people just really like violent things. I actually really enjoy hyper-violent games and movies and stuff like that. I find the over-the-topness of hyper-violent things to be just sort of fascinating in a way, so I really enjoy those. And some people really hate hyper-violence and they want to make something where they're sharing a personal experience, and that doesn't include, a war or a dragon or a fight or guns or anything. And then some stories that people want to tell lend themselves more towards the violence or the fantastical stuff, and some of them lend more towards non-violent interactions. So I think it's a mix of what is the creative thing you want to be making, what is the story that you want to be telling, what is the thing that you're interested in showing to other people, and what sort of is the best conduit for all of that together. And then there's always the market pressure of, when people think of video games, it's a shooty bang thing. So if you're trying to make a game that's gonna make a lot of money, then some people feel pressured to go that direction versus something that's more experimental and not as proven in the market financial side of it. So it's a whole conglomerate of different reasons, I think, coming down on whether or not you would make a violent game or not. did a little while ago when I first entered into the independent game sphere and quit my job of making other people's games and everything, where I was going through a really rough time. I had a personal relationship fall apart, I was moving, everything was bad, and I felt bad all the time. And I was in this constant state of just trying to get through every day with the amount of energy that I had, which was very, very, very little. And there was one day where I just made a game about that, and it's just a game where you just have to keep pressing the same button over and over and over and over again in order to make it through a day. And if you ever stop pressing that button, it's over. You're not okay anymore. And that's sort of just the end of it. And it was a really simple game, but it felt really nice to be able to capture that feeling and then put it out there. And I know a lot, some people who played it who were just I get this feeling and I understand it, or I understand what you're feeling now. And that was really neat. So that's probably one of the most serious topic games that I ever made, where it was just me dealing with basically going through depression and not really knowing how to show that to people. Yeah, I think from what I've seen of how studios operate and stuff, from my experiences, is the more diverse the people in your studio, the more you're going to talk about those things. If you have a studio full of a bunch of the same type of person, there's going to be so many blind spots of what is an issue or what isn't an issue, or what should be represented or what's not being represented. If you all are the same type of person, you're going to make a game, most likely 9 times out of 10, that is also reflective of that same person. If it's a bunch of 25-year-old white guys from America, you're going to make a game about a 25-year-old white guy from America. And maybe you won't, maybe you will, and maybe you'll be making a game about a 50-year-old woman in South Africa or something, but you may not get that correct because you don't have that experience or anything. So the more diverse the workplace, the more you have those conversations, the more you have somebody who goes, oh, you're sort of doing that wrong. That's not how it works in real life. This is how it works in real life. Because a lot of when you don't have that diverse thing, you don't know what you don't know. So I think the more diverse the workplace, the more you have those conversations, or the more you have people in your workplace who experience more diverse things outside of their work as well. You can still have a studio all of 25-year-old white guys from America, but maybe some of them are really active in feminism or in racism, or not active in racism, active in fighting racism. And everything, and they will be able to bring that knowledge back into their studio. So I think it's just a matter of having people who are open to other people's experiences, to listen to them, to hear what they're saying and everything, whether that's in the studio culture, inherently by having a diverse workforce, or in the studio culture by having people who are open to diverse workforces. I think, it's just mostly about having people there to share their experiences and show what's going on. There's only so much, you can tell somebody till you're blue in the face about a thing, but until that person experiences that thing or does that thing, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to really understand it. It's the same in everything. With a game jam, you have X amount of time to make a game, so you can tell people, oh, your idea is too big, you're going to have to cut it down. You can tell them that over and over and over again, and they're still going to have too big of an idea, and they're still going to do it, but then when they do it and they realize, oh, I had too big of an idea, they learn that lesson. So it's just a matter of having an experience to open your eyes to a lesson, as opposed to somebody just coming in and being like, hey, this is how it is. And some people are susceptible to that, but I would say the majority of people that I run into are much more they either have to see it or experience it or trust the person who is telling them, not just some higher up coming in and being like, we need to have more women in our games. I'm sure there was, but I can't think of any. I'm sure there is some sort of academic thing that I've internalized, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. Probably because academic games is fairly new, at least from what I have experienced. I went to school for engineering. We didn't have a games program at all at my university, and I didn't even really know I wanted to be in games then, so I went for engineering. And so I think because I did all of my schooling before any universities I knew of really had games education or academic games research. I sort of have always, not that I don't know games research exists, but it's always been over here, and I've been over here. And I know a lot of like games academic folks who teach at universities and are super smart, and like when I talk to them about games, it's amazing because they have all this knowledge and all this really analytical viewpoints of everything. But I've never gotten into the academic side of games. I think again, it's just because it's outside of my realm of how I got into the games industry or how I was educated, so both of those. And so I have this like bubble of how I got into the games industry and how I taught myself about making games. And then over here is academic games research. And like I've read, a few books here and there from smart games academic folks, but it's always just been on this periphery. I don't know.